Hey friends, it's Jeff, picking up our discussion with the Jackie Contessa on twos and mistypings. So in this episode, we're going to go through all the other combinations, threes, fours, fives, all the way through nines. Great discussion. Just love the hell out of what Jackie brings to the table. So I hope you enjoy. It's good. Threes and twos look real similar. I don't know that they're the most common mistype with twos, but there's certainly a lot of reasons to think that they look similar. As was said before, heart types, attention motivated. Yeah. There is a lot of value that comes from the opinions of the person in front of them. Yeah. A lot of threes can put off a very caring image and want others to recognize them.
Yes.
Both twos and threes show up in the world hard at times. And there is just adaptability for the twos and threes in their social spaces that probably can look very similar. So what do you see here?
So I think one of the things, when we reduce two to the helper, we have to be honest that we also reduce three into like this corporate ninja, right? And so when we think that an image can be anything and anything can be, well, whatever is successful, we can also say helpful, dutiful, warm. Those can be an image, right? And there's an interesting line there in where someone starts, right? So threes want to measure their worth and their sense of self through the achievement and the image of being possibly helpful, dutiful, warm, inviting, hosting, whatever, right? But it's about achievement and this image, right? And I want people to see me as a warm and helpful, dutiful person, versus twos measuring their worth and sense of self by their connections, their relationships, and how people respond to them. And that says, I'm loved. My sense of self is up or down based on how you receive my love, not what you think of me. Like, you can think of me as a warm or helpful person. You could think of me as a funny person. You could think of, but I want you to respond well to the love that I give you, right? And I think there's a difference there in that, like, being the perfect friend, being the best partner, right? These can be images. These can be performances, right? I want to be the best. I want to be the best friend that I could possibly be for this person. The biggest difference between 3 and 2 and being other focused is that one of the things I find, and this is maybe like a really minute detail, is that 3 will often do it for the POV of themselves from another person. Like, they will put themselves in the other person and do it for what that POV is going to be like. 2s want to inspire people to like them and hopefully eventually love them and etch this little space, this little role, like I'm thinking of like a little rat, like etching, like etching a little, like, that's what they're trying to do with their giving, what they're trying to earn, what they're trying to secure. And 3s are like, do you see me like that? If they are leaning towards being, I guess, 2-ish in their presentation, right? And so I think, where do you start is a huge thing. Like, why are you doing this? Do I want to secure something, or do I want them to see me a certain way, which makes me feel a certain way about myself?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the thing that comes up for me as you're talking is that 2s, I think, really do care about the emotions of the people in front of them.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think 3s do. If your emotional life is baggage, the 3 is not engaging you in that space, but the 2 probably is, because the 2 sees an opportunity. The 3 sees somebody who is weight.
The one thing I will say, right, some 2s can look 3-ish. Social 2s in particular do the thing that 3s and 8s are known to do, which is sort of not just repressing their feelings, but sort of being in denial about their feelings, and therefore they do it to other people, right? So you see other 2s necessarily like repressing their feelings, their negative thoughts about themselves, the negative realities. They're repressing, and they're pushing into another person's pain or pushing into another person to serve them. Social 2s, I mean, their intellect is their giving and their gift, and like their social role and responsibility, them pulling the strings, like that's there. So they'll bypass be in denial about their own feelings, and that's what they're doing for other people. Now, that is not to say that when somebody's in distress and in pain, it is the 2 that is more responsive to that, but there's still a role to be created there. For a 3, there's an image to be maintained, and you're coming with me or you're not.
Mm-hmm. I've seen 2s and 3s in a big room, and the way that they engage the big room in terms of I'm here to serve you is very different. For the 3, I'm here to serve you from a position on stage with a mic. I'm going to shine, and I sure hope you keep up because this is where glory's at. Mm-hmm. And the 2 is going to be more responsive to the crowd and engaging the crowd and offering, here's what I have for you.
Are you talking about me and Katie?
Of all things, I have 2 2s in mind and 2 3s in mind. So I am married to someone who has a microphone in hand, and I know what it looks like for Kelly to get up, microphone in hand. And actually, I have a third 3 in mind who works for our city. And I saw her come to a space that I invited her into to help some folks who are struggling business owners. And she told them how amazing all of her stuff was. And because this was not a place she wanted to really be. So it was more like, here's the amazing things going on. I really hope that you can figure out how to get your crap together and join us over here in success lane, as it were. Yeah. And that's not how the two would ingratiate themselves. And the 3 isn't doing that in the same kind of way.
Yeah. I also think too, what's really interesting is this idea of winning is a feeling that only the 3 can know. Achieving 3, like winning, whatever. And so when I think of like a sexual 3 in particular, about how promoting another person is like promoting themselves. I made this. And so if we are looking at just somebody who encourages, promotes, and builds up another person, we're looking for a different type entirely. Maybe we're looking at a 2. No, we're looking at a 3. We have to know where this person starts, right? So I think,
how's promotion look might be a thing. A 2 can promote others.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see 2s doing that all that often. It comes out actually a little bit more honest. 3s will attach to other people who are winning, and the success comes from that space.
Yes.
Like this person is a winner or has the potential to be a winner, and I'm going to elevate them so that when others see them, they remember that I was the one who promoted them.
Yes.
Bang.
Yeah.
You'll notice that I have a little bit more familiarity with the 3 on this front. And also I benefit quite a bit from this. From the 3s in my life.
Listen, being with a 3 is freaking awesome. So, and also Kelly's best. So that was the transition. The difference being, I think, severe that they are taking, both 2s and 3s are taking the world in through that emotional center. Both 2s and 3s can read the room and generally have very high EQs. But then there's the move after interpretation. Oof.
And the 3s stand independent from everyone's emotions. They've taken in the emotions and then can elevate into a place where those emotions don't matter anymore because they pivot and they say, what's the goal we're going to execute? How are we going to win? And the 2s don't do that. The 2s are on the front lines. Their hands are probably covered in some filth, loving some people and meeting them in that emotional space and really honoring the emotional space. And both those can be valuable for different reasons.
Yeah.
All right. No last words, 2s and 3s?
No last words.
2s and 4s, we hinted quite a bit at this. This is interesting, especially with, it seems to me, very mature 2s who have discovered their inner life and have dabbled in caring about their own emotional core. And that would be, I think where I see the mistyping. But what do you see with 2s and 4s?
So 2s and 4s are really similar in information, but the foundations of where these different things come from are really different. I think to your point, one thing that's interesting, I had reached out to you a while ago. We were talking about subtypes and I was like, I'm a lot more self-preservation. I lean towards self-preservation a little bit more than I thought since getting married, and it's been evident. And you had mentioned to me, I think it's a healthy move for heart types to lean towards self-preservation. And as I thought about it, I thought about how they're all the counter type, and within that counter type and those lookalikes is the growth number of each of the heart types. And so I do think that that's really interesting, especially because even if it's not a stress move for the 4, social 4, which is like the 4 that we think of when we think of 4, like the mall emo 4, one of their trademarks is that they are incredibly generous for other people and take the, in their own lives, they take the back burner. But why is what matters. Why is what matters. And so my thoughts, I think, are when I look at 2 and I look at 4, at, speaking of, I don't care what you do, I care where you start, right? Like the core message for 2s is I'm unlovable as I am, which sounds really 4-ish, right? But the way that Shame speaks to 4 talks about this idea of being like having something fundamentally missing in them. Like this like I have clients who talk about this it factor that they can never describe that other people have, but they don't have, right? And for 2s, I feel like the shame is specifically about being unworthy of love without earning it through service, because they cannot be loved for who they are. And love and care and adoration, those things can be reciprocated. Service can be reciprocated and cups can be filled. So that is a huge difference for 2 and for 4. I think we talked earlier in the episode about this inner world. What the hell is that coming from a 2? I wish, give me some. But yeah, so I think primarily 4s think about authenticity and identity, and it's their life's mission, and that inner world is their co-pilot. For 2s, like they can care about those things. Like it is important to me to be authentic, and like, because then I have to deal with it if I'm not authentic, and that sucks, right? But that inner world thing is not happening the same, right? 2s care about they really care way more. They prioritize way more the connection and proof of being loved.
Yep.
Like I think I would die without proof that I was loved. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, ew, I don't like the way that feels. So yeah, I think those are some of my thoughts. I also think too, we do call 4 the romantic. I do think 2s in their behavior, in their manifestations of, from their core fears and desires to manifesting behaviors, I think 2s are more oriented towards romanticizing and embellishing people and relationships for more than they are. And 4s are more oriented towards idealizing and then getting frustrated. So like, I thought it was going to be this way, it's not. I thought it was going to be this way, it's not. And 2s are very much like, yeah, but it's like this, and yeah, but they are so kind, and no, they're not taking advantage of me, and like it's very, romanticism and idealization are very different, very, very different. And sometimes that's how I've known the difference between a 2 and a 4 client is, I'm like, hold on a second, what you're doing is idealizing. I need to like run this back really quick. So those are some of my initial thoughts on 2 and 4.
No, I love that. The optimistic spin when 2s interpret bad relationships, right?
Yes.
It's exactly right. That is what I see. Both the 2 and the 4, they want those idealized relationships. Yeah. The 4's energy is going to be pulling people into their inner life and say, come here and see me and I will see you, sort of thing. Whereas the 2's energy for an idealized relationship will be going toward the other. And that becomes the big difference, pulling versus moving toward, in my mind.
Right. I mean, and when you think about how one of these types, right, you're thinking about type 4 coming from this place of like individuality and authenticity is so important, because I'm trying to balance the scales between belonging and the risk of exposure. And so therefore I want to belong, but I want to stand out within that belonging. And those are that's the background messaging that's happening in 4s when it comes to like engaging in the world and connecting and finding their tribe and leaving their mark. Those things aren't really happening for type 2. Type 2 is like step 1 is like, have I got them? Do they like me?
Yeah. It's both the 2 and the 4 think they might come across as overwhelming. The 4 thinks that they're going to overwhelm you with all the riches and depth that they know about themselves. Is this person prepared for me to unleash all of my full self? And the 2 doesn't know any of that. The 2 just knows that they might overwhelm with their care, their insightfulness, their ability to connect.
Yeah.
Both have this emotional intensity, and that probably would be a place where they look similar, and yet it's very different in that external versus internal manifestation.
100%. And I think one of the things about so I think self-preservation 2s can look like 4s quite a bit, and the difference is ambivalence versus withdrawn, right? I think those are the biggest differences. I think sexual 2s can also look 4ish because there's a lot of and it's still not inner-worldly, right? But it is that sense of longing for specifically a very specific kind of love. And that is about as far as they'll go, right? Where 4 does experience a sense of longing, which we call envy, right? It's not jealousy, but it's that sense of longing for something that is going to complete them because something is missing in them. And that's why they can't have what they want. That whole process is not necessarily happening because it becomes the 4's sort of mission to get what they lost so they can have what they want. Yeah. And for 2, it's just not that way. So I do find that to be very interesting. Yeah.
Last word for me, aside from both being in the heart triad, 2 and 4 shares a line. And so if you're a severely stressed out 4, you're obviously going to be using a lot of 2 techniques and skills. Yeah. How can I serve you so that you give me attention and I can feel like I'm seen? Or if you're a very secure 2, you may come across as 4ish because you have some sense of power, some sense that people really do care about me, and so I can actually focus on myself, and that those can mask one another. Yeah. Bang. 2s and 5s, probably less.
This one's less, yeah. There are I will say there are moments where, because there are 5s who, I mean, again, we reduce everybody. And so I had somebody recently tell me, like, I know I'm not a 5 because I'm not niche-y and computer. And I'm like, okay, well, that's having an aneurysm, you know? There are stark differences between those 2 types, right? And like, if we're looking archetypally, like, yes, one of them is very much like, love me. And the other one's like, I'm on the computer right now, though. Like, we can joke about those different things, but they have a lot more in common than we think. They just start in different places and often go to different places. So I think give or take a time or 2, right? I think 5s generally don't mind not being noticed for their help. And when I say help, I'm using that word really specifically because 2s do more than help, but I don't want to say that 5s don't mind not being noticed for their contribution, because I think lending a hand, pulling up a chair is one type of help, but that doesn't really mean much or cost much. And 5s are not thinking about being liked. But if they contribute something that they really deeply cared about, I think that's very different and does warrant them wanting to be noticed. So why do I want to be noticed is a very, is a where do I start question here. If I want to know if I'm very deeply in touch with myself, if I'm a 5, like, one thing we don't talk about with 5s is that maybe there's an element of not being emotional or overtly being sort of feelingless, right? They're very sensitive. 5s are hypersensitive. The disconnection between them and their emotions is so it doesn't touch their sensitivity, right? So while they can be really similar, I'm trying to figure out, okay, am I a 2 or a 5? I want to hear about the process of sharing and resources. Like, if you ask me, because I feel like sometimes I can be really cognitive, and like, I get lumped into like 8 and 5 all the time, and I'm like, I am such a manipulator, you have no idea. But one of the ways I know I'm not a 5 is, oh my God, if I could split everything in my life down the middle, from my time to my ice cream with my husband, I would do it, like, down the damn middle, and like the process of sharing and what that means on the inside, I think is big. Boundaries and rules, I think, are big, right? Like, I always say, like, a boundary is a life rule. And even if I'm not like you may not do this. I will not be spoken to this way. Like, even if twos nor fives do that kind of boundary, fives sort of have an idea of what they are trying to protect on their inside and naturally have boundaries that they know, well, I won't do this because then it won't compromise that. And that's a very natural process that doesn't quite happen in twos. Big difference between fives and twos is that fives are not going to beat a dead horse 50,000 million times. Jeff, I've told you this before. If I don't want to beat a dead horse for the 5 billionth time, call the police, like, please, right? But if there's nothing logical that can be done, right, that roundabout of outletting doesn't make sense to a five, where if a two may not tell you everything, but once they're in pain and ready to be the victim, they won't stop. They won't stop telling you. The last thing I'll say at fives is if someone's experiencing emotional difficulty, 2 and 5 will approach it differently. But if someone's experiencing a practical difficulty, I actually expect the 5 to come through a little bit better because, number one, they're not trying to get something out of it and they don't want anything from you. It's easy to solve a problem in that sense. The example I think of is when I came to the Around the Circle event for the most incredible book I've ever read. I met a 5 there who was so warm and so kind, and we connected and like just loved meeting them. And I had a moment, we were talking about rejecting types. What do you guys call them? Relationists. We were talking about 2, 5, and 8 rejecting types. And it hit a spot for me, and I have PTSD, and I started sweating from top to bottom. I literally started sweating. I was like in peril. Like someone was like, I was like, oh, there's a lion in here. And this 5 looks at me and like, was like, oh, come. And I don't know, her energy like carried me and made me walk with her and went straight to the back and was like, can we have a cup of ice? Here you go. Here's this person. Here's that. Like dragged me here, dragged me there, made sure I had everything. And then sat me back down and I was like, did you just out to me? Like, and it felt oddly safe as a 2 to honestly, like, I don't know how to explain that, but that's one of the other things too, is like 5s are incredibly generous. So to say that this can never be a mistype is like crazy. It's just about the cost. And I don't think 2s look at the cost. Irresponsibly, 2s do not look at the cost of what it is to give. Sexual 2s and sexual 5s can look really similar. Especially in, if I'm speaking in the binary, in females who are willing to be in more community and therefore, right, in touch with a little bit more of those active feelings. And then, you know, how it is with sexual 5s is that, like, if you touch the romantic spot, suddenly they're not a 5 anymore. And you're like, wait, what? Sexual 2s and sexual 5s can really look super, super similar. And it's these small defining things, I think, where you start that make a huge difference. The process of sharing boundaries and rules. Why? Why does sharing feel like that? Why does splitting things down the middle feel like that? Why is it easier to practically come through for somebody but not emotionally? Like, why? Yeah, those are my lots of thoughts on 5. I love 5s. I love connecting with 5s.
Very complementary pairing, 2s and 5s, I've found, on if you can get there. The thing that strikes me, and the reason they're not mistyped very often, is because a lot of the stereotypical language in the Enneagram cuts it off. That this is the type 5s that engage their head and they really elevate the observational withdrawn posture, and they don't give power to the emotions at the same level as 2s do. I think that's kind of the big thing. But if we knew a lot of Enneagram language, and especially if the 5 in front of us was very healthy, I could see them mistyping as a 2 because they, as you were saying, they're that 2-5-8 triad, the relationists. Yeah. They expect rejection in a relationship. They have a small circle. But if you're in the small circle, it might look very 2-ish, as you were saying. Yeah. Like Sarah's posture is a great example of this. That would be the 5 that she was talking to. But they both want to offer what they have. There's going to be this like grounded kind of loyalty. There's going to be especially if the 5 is moving into that 8 space a little bit, there is going to be energy going toward the other from a place, you know, for different reasons, but seeking to meet the other person's needs that they observe.
What they do with their feelings to make them less threatening is very, very important. And fives, I think, will go so far as like putting their feelings on a table and dissecting them without all of the feeling. I think twos don't make contact with things that don't agree with what they've romanticized and embellished. Like, you can't make contact with how crappy your boyfriend is and the fact that he never tells you he loves you when you've told every single person in the world and you're telling yourself every day he loves you and he's so great and you guys have the best relationship and so on and so forth. Like, that's some type of compartmentalization, but fives will, I think, make a field day out of the information and the deep dive into the inner world. Do you know what I mean? And twos try to overcompensate it on the outside. I also think too, if a five is like, I don't know if I'm a 2 or a 5, I really want to ask them how much they know about 4s. That's like, I'm like, how much do you really know about 4s? Because that's a funny middle there. So 2s and 6s. Okay, differences. I get curious with people about the process of worry and hypervigilance and what we get hypervigilant or worried about, where it starts, where it goes, what it stops, right? If we're all human and we can all worry and we can all worry about our relationships, I want to know why. I want to know what's starting that. Because twos have a pride-based belief that love is secure when it's earned through action, service, sacrifice. Twos have an often rooted in fear, hypervigilance about the unpredictability, the instability, the betrayal. So security is a threat. My sense of self is a threat. And now twos are not going to say cognitively, my sense of self is a threat. What they're going to say is we're a threat. And that's all that is, right? Like we're at a threat. That's not okay. If we're not okay, I'm not okay. But for sixes, if we're not okay, I'm not safe. I'm vulnerable, right? I think both of them have a very funny and self-preservation. Twos can also be a little bit six-ish, and self-preservation sixes, oh my God, what a tongue twister. Self-preservation sixes can also be a little bit two-ish. They're really, really warm, and mainly like that. Their why, right, for that is that like they don't want to get angry. They don't want to deal with other people's anger as well. And so there's that warmth and that helpfulness and that like togetherness that we think is all twos are made of. So they both have like a sort of funny relationship with like dependence and independence, and they can both be ambivalent about connecting, right? So both of those self-preservation subtypes, they both scan their environment for different things. And even if we boil it down to other people, one person is looking for threats, right? The 6 tends to be looking for threats to security and safety, literally, threats to a person who wants to thwart the goodness of the group, threats to the good time that they're having, threats to anything. What's going to make this not what it is right now? And I think when twos are scanning their environment, they're scanning it, to relate to other people and get their bolstered sense of self. I want to feel good. I want to connect to the people that make me feel good. And I want to feel loved. As a 2, if I'm being honest, right, like it is the world that we live in that makes me think about security and safety, but that's not the forefront in my mind, especially when connecting. I'm not thinking about guidance, security, safety. So 2s are trying to position them. So I am thinking about positioning myself as indispensable. Like I want a very specific relationship with everybody that I connect with. I'm always looking for that, a role, a place, right? 6s are looking for, often, even in relationships, like guidance, even if it's mutual, right? Guidance and sort of authority. And I think one thing too is that 2s find it way harder to ask for help, way harder to reach out and ask for help. Like it might be easy for a 2 to pick up a phone and call to a friend and be like, oh my God,
yeah,
he texted me, like, what do I text back? Like, I'm not talking about that kind of help, right? But for 6s, like, this is what it is that you tap me and I tap you in, and this is what community is for. And like, it's not a shame to ask for like the help and the guidance. Like 2s find it way harder. Both can struggle to figure out what they need for sure, right? But I think 6 is more apt to like sort of reaching outward to try and put feelers out for what that might be, that guidance. And 2s won't. I think 2s are often hoping when they reach out, it is to make up for that lack of self-love, to get some attention, and fill that cup, and not like, well, what do I do now? 2s are not looking to do something about their problems. They're looking to be liked.
Yeah. 2 things came to mind as you were talking on this, I think are worth naming. The one, 2s are going to have a library at their fingers of how relationships have gone in the past that they can pivot from. And sixes have no access to that half the time. Like sixes cannot get into the past. They can see the future threat and they are responding with a lot of present energy to it, but aren't able to remember the fact that Joe has been by your side the last 28 times and will be there 29. Like the six needs to reestablish that, but the two doesn't. The two isn't focused at the future at all, but has their past library to pull from. And the other thing, this may be why they mistype. Another reason they mistype is that the six in stress wants some attention. And that also is worth naming because they're going to move into that three space. The six is moving into three space and stress and start shouting, hey, pay attention to me in a way that an unhealthy two might at some level.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
That was a good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
Twos and sevens. You wouldn't think this type mistypes a lot, but this apparently... Twos and sevens and nines and twos, very common. And it has to do, in my mind, with the fact that they solve problems the same way in this optimistic, everything's going to be fine, very can-do spirit. They can put on a cheerleader hat if they want to. They can get Aaron Jack if they want to. They can be, adaptable and pivot towards, I just want people to be happy.
Yeah.
Kind of way of being in the world.
Yeah. I think, again, speaking in the binary, I think a lot of male twos end up getting typed as sevens. They get steered towards being, type 7. I find that in relationships, they want different things out of them, twos and sevens generally, right? One of the big, like, even when I have done like fun exercises with my husband and I, and like things like that, like our core values in relationships, his tend to always be surrounding things like adventure, possibilities, net positives. Like he's not so Enneagram savvy that I have to like feed him this information. He's like, yeah, well, I'm a 7. No, like literally that just comes up. Right. And my husband's a 7. So for me, I'm looking for like the depth, the connection, mutual support, mutual needs being met. Like I'm like, it's so funny because it's like, what do you want out of the relationship? Like, I want our relationship to be okay. What do you mean? Like, that's what I want. I want a relationship out of the relationship. I want you to love me and I want me to love you and I want love. And he's like, well, we're here now, adventure, possibility. So like what they want out of relationships. I guess it's interesting to start with this, but like they do both have a radar for how other people are feeling. Sevens really come from like the vibe perspective and not the emotions perspective. Twos will hone in on the emotional perspective. And like a big way is like, well, how do I know what they're feeling and what do I want to do about it? Like twos want to like hone in and make sure you're okay or that something's being done about whatever is going to alleviate you not being in pain. I think sevens more so want to distract and believe that joy just belongs to everybody and we all need to have a good time. And I'm not trying to reduce it either, but like even my husband, who's more of like a moody 7 than like a bright side 7, will very, very much feel like joy, like when someone is in pain or hurt or sad, like joy is just the thing that needs to happen to them. Like all the time. Where I'm like, I want to get you out of this pain and I do want you to love me for it and know that I can do that for you anytime, but I do want to get you out of this pain.
That's what I see also is that happiness as defined by a 7 and happiness as defined by a 2 are very different, but they both want you to be happy. And the 7's target for that happiness looks a whole lot more like elevating, being joyful, having exuberant experiences. And happiness for the 2 looks much more like comfort, like a big hug, like we are interconnected and caring for one another. And both of them want you to be happy, but it's different definitions of what happiness looks like.
Yeah, I also think too, a big difference is the like, twos being a responsive type, right? Lightheartedness and fun and positivity while available to both of them, right? For twos is going to be sort of contingent on appreciation, reciprocity, like being able to pick up Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Okay, awesome. And if that doesn't happen, they can get resentful and then manipulative, right? They push it because we still need what we need, and we're going to push into you to get what we want. Sevens are going to get frustrated if you're not rising to the occasion, sort of. And like, because they're an assertive type, they're going to leave you behind. They're going to push into what you want. Come with me or don't. And so I think that's another thing. One of the other things in talking about, hey, if everything's available to you, where do you start, is center of intelligence, right? Like sevens are head types, twos are heart types. That doesn't mean that twos don't think or sevens don't feel, but twos don't have a line to logic. Twos don't have a line to another head type, and sevens don't have a line to a heart type or a feeling type. And if you read the Around the Circle book, which is amazing, there are words like twos don't have productive thinking and sevens don't have productive feeling, which means that if I'm a seven, we can get into moods, but are we doing something productive with our feeling? And if I'm a two, I can start spinning stories in my head, but I'm not doing something productive with that. Sevens will take their thinking and make strategy and plans and overplans and overplans and overplans, but we're still doing something with our thoughts. And twos are going to do quote unquote something with their feelings, which is push into other people. So where we start is really important, even if both of those outputs look like joy, positivity, and a fun person to be around.
Yep. You're putting your thumb on another thing that's important here in the mistype is that the seven is going to be incredibly comfortable in the future, and twos just aren't there at all.
Oh my God.
If this is also what makes a marriage like yours complementary, and complementary is what you want to shoot for in romantic relationships.
Yes.
You need different things coming together that overlap and balance one another, and so that's a great good. Being one overly thoughtful and trusting in their thinking, and one being more emotionally attuned and sensitive to the depths of emotion in front of them. Again, incredibly complementary, which will matter.
Honestly, I appreciate that. And when you guys talked about that at the event, I started crying. So I was like, because I mean, I think that's the truth of the matter is that Mr. Contessa is a really wonderful person to be married to, but because he is open and gives 100% of his trust to the thing, to me, in the thing that's not his strong suit, which is like the intuition and the intuitive feeling and like the emotional parts of like the deeper feelings and things like that. Like he trusts me to like sort of take the lead on those things, even when it comes to like other people in our relationships. And I trust him to, I've never been able to think or strategize this way without him in my life, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's so much available. So like it is really complimentary, and I appreciate that. And I love him so much, and I love being married to him, and he's the best. Thank you.
As it's been said, like it can be like some of us really struggle with having romantic relationships with people in the same stance as us, but like two sevens share a different stance, share a different intelligence center, and really problem solve the same way, which can be incredibly valuable at times. Until it's not. But
we do give each other a lot of permission, but like the important thing though is that we're aware of it. We're both very aware of, like this morning, he was like, I don't think I'm going to go to the office. And I was like, well, I don't want to enable you, but do you have anything to do today that's important? And he's like, well, and I was like, just stay home. He's like, yeah, just stay home. Like, we're not good for each other in that way for sure.
Right.
but yeah, twos and sevens are great. Good pair.
Bang. Well, moving to the 2-8, another pairing on the line. So just like twos and fours, twos and eights are going to be worth noting overlap in a couple of places. So twos who are really stressed out will look like eights. Eights who are very secure may look very much like twos. Both are going to expect rejection in their relationships, and eights look like they have a small inner circle. Twos have a small inner circle, but don't necessarily look like it. But if you are typing yourself, you might think I just have a small inner circle if you're a two. Lots of protectiveness here, lots of advocacy, lots of I'm strong on your behalf, lots of loyalty, lots of help with perhaps some strings attached at times, especially if the 8 has some different motives here.
Yeah.
8s can be incredibly nurturing, and there's just a lot of action with 2s and 8s. So those are the overlaps I see. What do you see as the differences?
So, as you know, as I've told you this, like if there's one type I ever wake up in a panic thinking I got it wrong and might be, it's always an 8. Like I get that feedback from a lot of people. I'm like, I first of all, I wish I had the inner mechanics of what it takes to make an 8, because it would make some of the things I do out loud a little bit more understandable. But when I've heard this on different platforms from different teachers, but a question that always pings with 8s that is very much a mirror to the I don't care what you do, I care where you start, is when did you become aware of your power? For me, that's fucking never. I'm sorry. I'm like, when people ask that question to 8s, I'm like, can we sign up for that? Because I've needed some of that. And I've only been able to do that when I'm like a banshee out of hell and I'm stressed, right? So that's like a big thing is if you can't answer or access or be aware of this like idea, if this is like that inner world thing we talked about, it being sort of foreign to 2s, if it's foreign to you, this concept of becoming aware of the power and agency you own doesn't quite click with you, I think there's like a first thing there, because I'm a fairly aggressive 2, I'm a fairly aggressive person, and I'm an Enneagram 2, right? But it's not the same, and it's not from the same place. So that's number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick footnote on that. This is a good reason why we've kind of tried to drop the word aggressive to describe the stance, because 1s can look really aggressive, 2s can look really aggressive, 6s can look really aggressive. And there's a difference between being aggressive, assertive, and being emotionally independent. And that's where the 8 is, like 3s and 7s.
Yes. And I think with that being said, talking to 2s and to 8s about their anger is a very different experience, right? Because you're going to get a mixed bag when it comes to 2s about the things they do or don't get angry about, how they feel about their anger, where they, like, you know, it's going to be sort of a mixed bag, like I think any other human, or they might sit on one side of the fence or the other. 8s is there's always going to be this like, oh, anger my old friend kind of way about it, right? There's a different story to be told how 8s relate to their anger, not if they like it, not if they engage with, like, just how they relate to it. And I always find that anger seems to be a constant companion and informant for 8s. It's not quite the primary compass for 2s. We might act angrily or aggressively or victim-y, but it comes from a feeling of shame. It comes from a feeling of something on the outside messed with how I feel about myself, my identity, my image, and maybe I'll choose anger as a weapon. That's fine, but it's coming from shame. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about this earlier, how 2s can be very, very possessive, and also protective to some degree, and that can sort of border with 8s. And if it's for somebody they love, right, their agency can appear almost out of nowhere. But 2s don't quite have the agency for themselves at the forefront of their mind when it comes to like wanting to make impact, make waves, make big moves, make big noise, the way 8s are predisposed to wanting to do that. Maybe they do, but they want to do that within their relationships, 2s. I think we talked about social 2s when it came to 3s, how they can look really 8-ish. I think social 2s can look, it's funny because social 2s and social 8s can look like one another. So where they start is a very, very important place, right? Mm-hmm. Why I do what I do. It might be silly to say this, but like, are there some things I have preference over and am nitpicky about within like my home or the way I do things? Sure. I don't want control. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to want or need control. I fear independence. All the 8s are like, are you out of your effing mind? I like the idea of being like really, truly independent and like, no.
Maybe control over, again, your inner circle Do you know what it's like to be passive aggressive to get leverage?
Yes. Do I? Okay. So personally, I actually like don't like the feel. Like one of the things that I've always felt sort of quite 8ish on is being. I don't agree necessarily with being direct, but I think being passive aggressive is a sin, and so I'll be incredibly indirect, but I won't be passive aggressive. You know what I mean? Like manipulative. I will be manipulative. I'll find a way to say what I'm saying.
The temptation is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
8s have a temptation to be aggressive.
Yes, there's no passive. No.
Yeah.
And they're also not, and it's what I think is really interesting too is, yes, we know 8s to convert a lot of their softer or more the feelings that threaten them and their strength and their power. They'll convert that to anger, then that converts into momentum, and then they can use that, right? The other thing too is that 8s will often say what is on their mind, literally, yes, because that is how it's formulating in their mind without the room for nuance or needing to think too much about, like I want to get to 8. Autonomy is I want to go from A to B in the way that is quickest, fastest, easiest for me, and nobody bothers me. A to Z or A to B without you. And so that's how they think. That's also how they say. 2s put a lot more, I think, and we call it aggressive, but like it's just that 2s have more borders and care and consideration to how they are being perceived. They want people to like them. So it's indirect and not in a way that 8s are more aggressive. 2s are just indirect because being direct is mean and threatening, and 8s are not categorizing it that way, right? So what, like we see that with anger, 2s will be like, oh, anger this, and it made me so angry and I didn't eat for 3 days. And like anger does a whole host of things. Like when an 8 feels anger or expresses anger, it's very easy to feel, easy to express, and once it's out, it's just energy, right? Like it happened and it's over. And I think that's the bad rap that often happens and makes someone go like, oh, that's an 8. But the line between 2 and 8 is when a 2 has repressed and then explodes, and they explode in a moment of stress, and they're reaching for 8 and they're reaching for their lowest points, and they're throwing that to protect themselves. Honestly, like the times I find myself going to 8 feel like I'm reaching for a hand grenade and throwing it at a threat in front of me.
And what is it that you want when you like, what didn't you get that moves you into that space?
I tried to get somebody to like or love me or staked way too much, and I'm getting rejected to a point where I don't even want them to like me anymore. And there comes the wall. And I want to slam the door and run. Yeah.
The motive there in terms of where aggression comes from, real different, because it's probably from the 2. It's coming from that space that is, you are not seeing me, caring about me. I did all these things for you. And the 8 doesn't care
I'm getting real sweaty. Yep.
Your emotional feelings about them at that level.
100%. Even just like getting myself into that feeling of, what it took to like respond to that question of like, oh yeah, when I go into 8 and grab, I know what I'm grabbing because I know what I'm protecting myself from.
Yep.
And that's a process that could be every day for an 8. Oh, nope. Take my power, put it in front of me. You're not coming to me. But for me, that's a stress move, and it takes a lot. It costs a lot, and it's a lot to recover.
The 8's using those tools for a different reason. It's not going to be to get somebody else's attention. Mm-hmm. The anger that you're seeing in the 8 and the energy coming out is often a response to their own sense of being vulnerable and insisting that they're not going to get pushed around, and even solving the problem ahead of time by saying, if I posture this way, then I won't be in a place that's vulnerable. What's interesting is when the 8 gets stressed, it doesn't come out like that. No. When the 8 gets stressed, they take a big step back and start thinking. And that is the difference between the 2 and the 8 that's really severe in my mind.
Yeah. I think another thing too, especially if you find yourself like that you lean towards 8, but you are really nurturing or helpful or care or like have a familial role that you need to step into or something, right? That like, right. When eights take care of other people, for them, it's taking control. Like they need to have the control to do what is needed to take the power. Like that's part of their gift, right? Care is a means to an end for eights to have control. And just so no one gets offended, that's like just for predictability. It's not like I have the power and you don't. It's not always like that, right? Sometimes it's just the predictability. And for twos, when twos take care, they want to make an impression on people. Yes, they do want to alleviate people's pain. Yes, I found out there were 25 stray cats at a house, and now I go on a treat walk every day and I bring them treats. Like we do want to alleviate the pain, okay? Like we do want to but we also, when we take care of people, we do want to make an impression on them that says this is the kind of person that I am. Mm-hmm. And for eights, there's an element of control that's needed, because what it is it's taking care is a means to an end of protection, and protection is them offering themselves as close as they can possibly get. And for twos, it's like the giving or the helping or the nurturing is me giving as close as I can get.
Yeah. I see twos and eights taking a lot of the same jobs. Nursing, elementary school, counselor. These are jobs that twos and eights gravitate to for very different reasons. Yeah. But part of the eight gravitating to those jobs ends up being, here's a place where I can exert my power on behalf of others and not feel vulnerable, because second graders can't hurt me, because this person who's in the ICU can't hurt me, because when I'm a counselor, I have dominion over my space. You came to me for help, and I get to set the parameters and exert my power on your behalf. And all of those spaces where eights getting into and engaging that two space can be another, it could be a mistyping space if you weren't real familiar with the language.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we make, I said this earlier, but we make twos look like lamb and eights look like slaughter. And, like as a two, you can look at one situation as an injustice as an eight, right? And as a two, you can look at it and go, this is pain, I want to alleviate it. And you can do just that. It just depends on where you start. When I graduated college, my first job was working with domestic survivors of sex trafficking in the United States. So, and for me, it came from a lot of similar places I think that eights would come from. But in reality, it was my empathy and my compassion and my, the parts that it was pinging in me, the pain that it was pinging in me, that gave me the strength to compartmentalize and go forward and help and give of myself to these people. Is it an injustice? Yes. Did I register it that way and use that as momentum like an eight would? No, I did not.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, the mode's going to be different there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's helpful. All right, last one is twos and nines. Very common mistype again. Again, in my mind, comes back to positive coping style. Twos and nines can both be dismissive of problems that are in front of them. Yeah. They both have a hard time being attentive to their inner lives. They can both exude a very comforting spirit and merge. They are a harmony-focused kind of pairing. And they won't, I think twos and nines avoid talking a lot about themselves and prefer something else. There's a different sort of topic that we could be talking about.
That depends. They might talk about themselves a lot. Both of them might talk about themselves a lot, but in a way that forgets them to some degree for the connection, right? So I might... Yeah,
for the sake of the connection is exactly right.
So I'm thinking of a relationship I have with a 9. I'm thinking about how we communicate and stuff. And we talk ad nauseum about the friends that we have in common. We talk ad nauseum about her husband and ad nauseum about my husband. And then when we're sharing sort of our personal stuff, but I also don't want to take my space from her and she doesn't want to take space from me and da-da-da. I find it to be interesting because I don't find that a lot of 2s think that they are 9s, but 9s think that they are 2s. Does that make sense?
That's exactly right.
I find if you're not typing as a 2, it's probably not because you're a little bit more nine-ish. I think it's usually the other way around. I think I find a differentiator to sort of be, number one, like my favorite question is, are you manipulative? And, you know, nines will think about it and they'll try to justify that, like, maybe, but they don't really mean to. And then
It's
twos,
not
and then twos will
active
start
in the same
laughing.
way.
And twos will
Yeah.
start laughing. They're like, well, like, what do you mean? And I'm like, that's exactly what I mean. And nines might be like, I mean, like, I could see that I could be, but that's not my intention. You know, like, they're not trying to disqualify me in that response even. And I think both types self-forget, but for nines, they have to unremember, right? That's what makes merging.
Yeah.
No one's really easygoing, and that's what makes them so easygoing, is that they have to unremember. Twos remember. It's always sort of there, and they're trying to get ahead of it with, like, you know, optimism, and then working hard for the relationship, and then that the relationship's good, like, it'll all work out, it's fine. But they're creating those stories along the way about how things are really going. But when nines forget themselves, they disconnect from the thing that makes them be able to go back in and remember that preference.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Relationally, I think you're putting your thumb on something that would be like the two is inserting themselves. Nines don't insert themselves in the same way. Nines are the blob, and they can kind of take over spaces that matter to folks and kind of assimilate them.
Yeah.
And here's my space where I do things that serve everyone. But the two in inserting wants to be seen. Nines just want to be background noise, but important. They still want their
Yes.
presence to matter.
Yes.
But they are disappearing as much as, for the most part, nines want to kind of disappear and blend.
Yeah, I think twos do are more comfortable exerting energy for pursuit. Does that make sense? Like pursuit of
Yep,
people,
that's
actively
exactly right.
pursuing being liked, pursuing securing a place. Nines will sort of merge, sort of prioritize stability over asserting or inserting, right? And, you know, especially even if that means that they don't move nor impress people, like they're not necessarily concerned with that. Belonging is more stable, even if that means being invisible. And for two, belonging is a loud gong. It's a reverberation. It's, oh my God, thank you. Right? And it's so it's very, very different. Twos care way more if people like them or not. And especially in getting people to like them. And it's not that nines don't want people to be mad at them. Nines don't want people to have conflict with them or tension, but like they don't have this endless cup of energy that they can reach into and dole out energy to like make people like them. Like that's not where they start. It's where twos start.
Two aren't interested in not being affected.
Yeah.
Nines are really interested in not being affected.
Yeah. I find myself as a two telling friends who are, you know, especially sevens and nines, but mostly nines, it's okay to risk being the bad friend to tell someone something, right? Like I'm always surprised to hear time and time again how many, like, let's say nines look like they are just floating through, and then you ask the one right question and they're like, you find out they have like a CVS size receipt opinion of their friend's boyfriend but would never tell them. And twos are like, oh, I'm going to actively insert myself into your life and you need to know, and I know exactly what you need right now.
I know what you need right now. Nines are never going to say, I know what you need to do. They are going to say, here's a comfortable spot for you to
Why don't you take
be
a walk?
and talk
Yeah.
about that for a minute.
And maybe like take your mind off of things, go for a walk. Like
Yeah.
they're not
Preference
going
for
to tell you
ease.
what to. Yep, exactly. And twos are like, I'm going to get you out of here. And when you look back, you're going to go, Jackie got me out of here.
Yeah. Interesting thing with twos and nines on the orientation of time is twos take in the world through the past and respond in the present moment. Nines are going to take the world in through the present moment, but respond with some past tools to get what they want. And so both of them are kind of not concerned with the future because it's all going to be okay. And that is very similar in kind, and another reason that they may mistype.
Yeah, I do find that one, like, stubbornness and pride are cousins, but they are not the same thing. numbing out and repressing. Cousins, not the same thing. Forgetting yourself versus deprioritizing yourself, not the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think there is a fine line. And if we can be honest about where we start and then how it further manifests us into our personal patterns, we can very easily see the difference between 2 and 9. Both can be very connection forward. One of them is like really willing to risk it for the biscuit to connect with people. And that's 2.
Yeah, the 9 is connection forward in order to create atmospheres that are mutually beneficial and pragmatic.
Yes.
So the 3, 6, 9s, all pragmatists. They're creating spaces for the sake of others, but for the sake of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2 is giving a gift and expecting reciprocation.
Yeah.
And those are different. That's what I got.
That's what I got.
We did it. This is a good study. This I like. And by the way, if you want more of this, all the other whatever it would be something like 29 pairings.
Nice.
Jackie Contessa has co-authored a fantastic mistyping chart in the back of the Around the Circle book that goes through this, and you can see all of our 30 pairings for all of the types there. So these are just the 2s.
Yeah.
That's what
This
I got.
is fun. This is fun. And I enjoyed this because as I'm thinking about nuances and clients, and I was really thinking heavily at the top of this conversation at like, what is really important that makes me wish an online test was a person, right? What's really important? What nuances really, really matter? And these are the things that I'm like, yeah, we want to talk about these lines. So I appreciate this conversation so much. I think this is one of the most important parts of this journey is to go, yeah, I start here and I'm willing to own it. And if that's 2 and we're able to put that pride to the side and own it and go, man, I really need to be needed and I don't like the way that sounds or feels. Welcome to the club. We're working on it, guys.
It's stellar. Jackie, you not only do fantastic Enneagram commentary, you also coach. Where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. It's at Table for 9 Co. That's FOR and the digit 9. I'm also at JackieContessa.com, but I like DMs and Instagram, so you can find me there.
Bang. There are a lot of 2s who are teaching Enneagram, but none of them are the Jackie Contessa.
My ego doesn't need that.
Always thrilled when you show up with some fire, some spit in your hands, ready to get to work, throw down some profanities, make me feel good about myself.
I'm trying to limit it. Thank you, though. It's always a joy to have these conversations with you, and I think you are doing a wonderful job in elevating conversations that need to be had. So I appreciate that very much.
Bang. That's the goal. Jackie, appreciate that.